Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, I'm going to share with you one of the most unbelievable stories that's ever happened to me. And I guarantee you're going to be shocked. Imagine this, you're in your own home. You decide to hang a simple clothesline in your backyard to dry your clothes. And the very next day, you receive a $500 fine notice in the mail. Yes, you heard that right. My HOA, the Homeowners Association, actually fined me $500 just because I put up a clothesline in my own backyard. In today's video, I'm going to walk you through this entire insane situation, explain what HOA letters really are, why their rules have gotten completely out of control, and what you can do if you ever find yourself in a similar situation. If you're thinking about buying a home or you already live in an HOA community, this video is absolutely essential for you. So let's dive right in. So here's what happened. A few weeks ago, during the height of summer, I noticed my electricity bill was going through the roof. Most of that cost was coming from running my dryer constantly, sometimes twice a day. I started thinking about more eco-friendly and cost-effective solutions. And that's when I remembered the good old-fashioned clothesline. I did some research and found out that air drying clothes not only saves a significant amount of money on electricity, but it's also much better for the environment and actually extends the life of your clothes. So I decided to install a simple clothesline in my backyard, completely out of view from the street, where only my family could see it. It wasn't anything fancy, just two metal posts with rope strung between them. I thought to myself, this is my private backyard. What could possibly be the problem? Well, 3 days later, I opened my mailbox to find an official-looking envelope from the HOA Board of Directors. When I opened it, my jaw literally dropped. Inside was a formal violation notice stating that I had breached the community covenants and guidelines. The letter gave me exactly 7 days to remove the clothesline from my property, or I would face a $500 fine. I couldn't believe what I was reading. I immediately pulled out my HOA rulebook, which is about 100 pages long, and started searching through it. Sure enough, buried on page 73 in tiny print, there it was: no outdoor drying apparatus or clotheslines shall be visible from any angle, including from neighboring properties. I was absolutely stunned. Here I was, trying to save money and help the environment, and I was being threatened with a massive fine for doing something that people have done for centuries. Now, let me take a moment to explain what an HOA actually is for those of you who might not be familiar. A homeowners association is essentially a governing body that manages a residential community, whether that's a neighborhood of single-family homes, a condominium complex, or a townhouse development. When you buy a property in an HOA community, you're automatically required to become a member and pay monthly or annual dues, which typically range anywhere from $50 to several $100s per month. In theory, HOA letters sound like a great idea. They're supposed to maintain common areas, provide amenities like pools and parks, handle landscaping, and ensure that the neighborhood looks clean and well kept, which in turn is supposed to protect everyone's property values. However, here's where things get complicated and often problematic. HOA letters have the legal authority to create and enforce rules, called covenants, conditions, and restrictions, or CC&Rs. These rules can cover everything from what color you can paint your house to what kind of mailbox you can have, whether you can park an RV in your driveway, what types of plants you can grow in your garden, and yes, even whether you can hang clothes outside to dry. The problem is that many HOA letters have become incredibly restrictive and overzealous in their enforcement. What started as reasonable guidelines to maintain neighborhood aesthetics has evolved into micromanagement of nearly every aspect of homeownership. And the worst part? If you violate these rules, the HOA has the power to fine you, and if you don't pay those fines, they can place a lien on your property or even foreclose on your home in extreme cases. That's right, you can actually lose your house over something as simple as a clothesline. After receiving that violation notice, I knew I had to act fast. I decided to attend the next HOA board meeting to plead my case in person. I prepared a whole presentation explaining how clotheslines are environmentally friendly, how they save energy, and how my backyard clothesline wasn't even visible from the street or most neighboring properties. I brought photos, electricity bill comparisons, and even research studies about the benefits of air drying clothes. At the meeting, I presented everything to the 5-member board, who sat there with completely expressionless faces the entire time. When I finished, the board president, a woman named Karen, seriously, simply said, "The rules are the rules. We can't make exceptions, or everyone will want one." I tried to reason with them, explaining that the rule seemed outdated and unnecessarily restrictive, especially given the current push for environmental sustainability. I even mentioned that several states have actually passed right-to-dry laws that protect homeowners' ability to use clotheslines despite HOA rules, but they weren't having any of it. Another board member chimed in, saying that clotheslines make the neighborhood look poor and trashy, and that it could bring down property values. I was honestly speechless at this point. Here I was, being told that trying to reduce my carbon footprint and save money made me look poor, and that somehow this was worse than wasting electricity on a dryer. The meeting ended with the board voting unanimously to uphold the violation and proceed with the fine if I didn't remove the clothesline within the deadline. I left that meeting feeling frustrated, angry, and completely powerless. It was my property, my backyard, and I couldn't even make a simple, eco-friendly choice without being punished for it. This experience really opened my eyes to just how much control HOA letters have over homeowners, and how that power can be abused. Now, my story isn't unique at all. Across America, millions of homeowners are dealing with similar HOA nightmares. I started doing research and found countless horror stories online. There are people who've been fined for having the wrong shade of beige on their house, for planting flowers that weren't on the approved list, for having basketball hoops in their driveways, for displaying the American flag, and even for having children's toys visible in their yards. One family I read about was fined because their grass was a 1/4 inch too long. When the HOA inspector came by, another homeowner faced legal action because they installed solar panels on their roof, even though solar panels are generally encouraged for environmental reasons. The problem is that many HOA boards are run by volunteers, who often have too much time on their hands and enjoy the power trip of controlling their neighbors. What makes this situation even more frustrating is that it's incredibly difficult to fight back against an HOA. They have legal teams and plenty of money from all those monthly dues, while individual homeowners have to pay out of pocket for lawyers if they want to challenge a decision. Many people just give up and pay the fines because fighting it would cost even more money and cause more stress. And here's something really important to understand. When you're buying a home in an HOA community, you're signing a legally binding contract agreeing to follow all their rules, even if you don't read all 100 pages of guidelines. That means you're essentially giving up certain property rights the moment you sign those papers. A lot of people don't realize this until it's too late, and they're already dealing with violations and fines. So what happened with my situation? Well, I ended up taking down the clothesline because I simply couldn't afford a $500 fine. However, I didn't just roll over completely. I started gathering signatures from neighbors who also thought the clothesline rule was ridiculous. It turns out I wasn't alone. Many people in my community felt the same way about various HOA rules, but were too afraid to speak up. With enough support, I submitted a formal petition to have the rule reviewed and potentially changed at the next annual meeting. The process is slow, and there's no guarantee of success, but at least I'm doing something rather than just accepting defeat. Now, let me give you some practical advice if you're in a similar situation or want to avoid this kind of problem altogether. First, before you ever buy a home in an HOA community, read every single page of their CC, enders, and bylaws. I know it's boring and time-consuming, but it's absolutely essential. Look specifically for rules that might affect your lifestyle, and if you find deal breakers, walk away and find a different property. Second, if you're already in an HOA and receive a violation notice, respond in writing immediately and request a hearing. Document everything with photos and keep copies of all correspondence. Third, check if your state has any laws that override HOA rules. For example, Many states now have laws protecting solar panel installation, and some have right-to-dry laws that protect clotheslines. Fourth, attend HOA meetings regularly and consider running for the board yourself. The best way to change bad rules is from the inside. And finally, if you're dealing with a particularly unreasonable HOA, consult with a real estate attorney who specializes in HOA disputes. Sometimes a lawyer's letter is enough to make an HOA back down, especially if they're actually in the wrong dot. So that's my crazy HOA clothesline story. I never imagined that something as simple and innocent as drying my clothes outside would turn into such a huge ordeal, but here we are. The experience has taught me a lot about HOA letters, property rights, and the importance of standing up for yourself even when it feels like you're fighting an uphill battle. If you've had similar experiences with your HOA, please share your story in the comments below, because I'd love to hear about it. And I think it's important for people to know just how common these problems are. And if you're thinking about buying a home, please take HOA rules seriously before you sign anything. Your home should be your castle, not a place where you're constantly walking on eggshells worried about the next violation notice. Thanks so much for watching, and if you found this video helpful or interesting, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. I'll see you in the next video.